Welcome to the Game Night High School Football Podcast, a weekly review of all the local high school football games set to be played this weekend. The Game Night Podcast is brought to you by Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical. Hit refresh and get back out on the field. Now, we turn it over to our hosts, sports editor Kurt Ritzman and lead sports writer Todd Hummel.
Welcome to week 6 of our Game Night Podcast. I'm Kurt, this is Todd. Halfway through the season.
Again, we're doing video, and every time we used to not have video, I raised my hand when people would say my name, and now I just stand here and stare dumbly. But that's also my personality sometimes, too. But so, week 6 already. It's hard to believe that, this is the last Friday in September, and there's only 4 weeks left in the regular season after this week. So, I think, was it last year was your first year? And I tried to warn you that football season flies by. Football season flies by, doesn't it?
It's crazy.
Just right by. A lot of games this week. I don't think any area teams except for Mount Carmel and Mifflinburg actually play each other this week.
Yeah.
Everything else is just, I think it's, that's the only two teams that we cover that both play each other. So it's a big week of football this week. We should probably get started.
Yeah, so let's start off with that Mount Carmel-Mifflinburg game. Mifflinburg seemed to be doing pretty well and then lose last week by 2 to Warrior Run. Mount Carmel takes its second loss of the year to really good North Schuylkill team.
When I did the stats this week, I think it almost perfectly doubled Mount Carmel's rushing yards allowed last week.
Wow.
I think it was Mount Carmel had allowed 381, and I think North Schuylkill ran for 382 last week against the Red Tornadoes, which just amazes me. I know how good that Mount Carmel run defense is, and North Schuylkill, we talked a little last week that, they rolled Loyalsock, they rolled Shamokin. Danville had a lot of issues with them in the scrimmage, and now that just kind of makes me want to see they play Jim Thorpe this week, who's only given up one touchdown and that came against Midwest last week. North Schuylkill, both 5-0. That should be a fun one. But, Mifflinburg's run defense has kind of been underrated this season. They've played some pretty tough run offenses and have done a good job. This will be a different kind of test, obviously, with this Mount Carmel team. Mount Carmel struggled a little bit to kind of get John Ayers involved the first 2 weeks of the season, and they made some shifts before the Lewisburg game. Ayers has been on fire since then. 140, 200-some against Jersey Shore, and he's still at 148, I think, last week in the loss to North Schuylkill. So I think that's going to be tough for Mifflinburg to stop. And, I think Tommy Reisinger, in a time of need, had his best passing game of the year last year, too. And Jack Chapman, I think it's 13 catches for 233 yards, is probably one of the top pass-catching tight ends in the area. So, that's another spot that they seem to be improving in. I think Mount Carmel gets this one. But, man, when somebody figures out the rest of this Division II, just let me know. I just kind of threw my hands up when I heard that score last Friday night because we thought Mifflinburg was going to be the breakout. Milton's offense played well last week, but still didn't score any points. And now Warrior Run gets that win over Mifflinburg, and Warrior Run jumped into the district playoffs. Was at 8th seed in 2A, 3A, and Mifflinburg and Milton both dropped out. So I think those teams are going to flip-flop around for the rest of the season, and then we'll see how it goes. But I think Mount Carmel gets this one.
Okay. Those power rankings are going to be real interesting to watch.
Yeah.
See what happens over the last half of the year. Let's talk about the Defenders. 14-12 win, first win under Coach Chris Long.
It was the first win of the year too.
Yeah, both are true, and they're heading up to Hughesville on Friday night. And Hughesville was one of the couple teams that Warrior Run beat last year too. So 2-game winning streak for the Defenders.
I really think so. I think the Defenders probably have to be the favorite in this game. The only thing to worry about is Wellsboro, was undefeated and played Hughesville last week, and it was 7-7 at the half till Wellsboro pulled away. So Hughesville went back to the wing tee, has really struggled, on both sides of the ball this season. Jace Wright is probably their best threat offensively is at fullback. And Warrior Run really got its passing game going last week. Remington Quarterman really spread the ball around. Mike Keys had a touchdown. I think they've really made a concerted effort to get the ball more in Denver Beachel's hands, who had a touchdown catch last week and has really started to carry the ball more on offense and in the running game. And I think it's just a matter, of Coach, figuring out kind of what he has and what works for them. And I think they get their second win, and they're a team to kind of keep an eye on in this back half of the season as a shot. If Mifflinburg and Milton continue to stutter a little bit, that really has a chance to grab a hold of that 7 or 8 seed in Class 3A, and I think that would be pretty exciting for the Defenders to get into the district playoffs. It's been a while.
Let's keep with that theme. The other team we talked about, one of them is going to make a leap up is Milton. Bit of an up and down season with some injuries and a nice win, a close loss to open the game, and then some not so great results lately. Headed to Montoursville Friday night.
Yeah, and Montoursville is probably, if not the most improved team in the HAC, probably it's pretty close. Really struggled last season. Hunter Sure has made some big improvements throwing the ball. Only losses to Jersey Shore, and that was kind of surprised because they led at halftime, and Jersey Shore made a great comeback in the second half at home. I think this is a tough one for Milton. I think Montoursville probably gets this one, but this is kind of where you could point to where Milton's program kind of turned around to be able, to be competitive from getting blown out. It was a 7-0 game last year, and that was the first time that snapped that string of 70-point games for the Milton defense, and Milton's defense played real well, and then Milton bounced back and won the game after the Montoursville game last year. It seems like they're playing a little better. I mean, I think they struggled with mistakes in the red zone, but I think they have every right to feel that it should have been 14-12, 14-14
Sure.
at halftime with Danville last week. Now it's just a matter of fixing those mistakes. They got a run game going that struggled since probably the second week of the season, a win over Warrior Run. Jason Valadares had 90 yards last week, and now it's a matter of getting both parts of the offense going at the same time. It's been either the passing game or the rushing game. They haven't really gotten both since that first week of the season. So, I think Montoursville wins this week, and looking at some of these games, if you're looking for maybe, if you want to call an upset, it maybe Milton gets enough offense together to kind of surprise Montoursville, but I think the Warriors get this one at home on the turf.
Okay. Let's hop up to some of our bigger schools. Selinsgrove.
You're just rolling right up 180 there, aren't
That's
you?
right. Selinsgrove last week played Berwick tough, lost 21-7, only allowed 7 first-half points. And our Chris Nagy talked to Coach Derek Hicks about his defense in that game.
Yeah, I was pleased. I mean, coming in, we knew that, they were going to run the ball. 39's a heck of a ball carrier. They've been averaging, almost 300 yards a game on the ground. So, we felt if we were going to have a chance, we had to stop that run, force them to pass the ball. And defensively, I was real pleased. The guys hustled to the football, and we were on the field a lot. I don't know how many plays they ran, but, defense was stout. A couple big plays we gave up that allowed them to get those 21. But, sitting at halftime 7-0, real pleased with where we were at.
You had your chances. You had some great field position. It's just, as stout as your defense was, they answered when their backs were against the wall.
Yeah, I mean, we knew coming in their defense was probably the best we're going to see this year, very possibly. And, we had short fields, and credit to their defense. They made the plays, and they kept us out of the end zone until late in the game.
And now this week, the Seals head up to Loyalsock in what seems like a winnable game.
Yeah, without Connor Watkins, Loyalsock, both of these teams are 2-3, and it's not very familiar territory for the both of them. Loyalsock without Watkins has now lost to Bloomsburg and Montoursville in back-to-back weeks. There's still a lot of talent in Loyalsock between Gerald Ross and Bam Brema on the defensive line, and I think as a matter of kind of mentally, when you lose your leader like that it's kind of tough to bounce back for. It's also going to be interesting to see how Selinsgrove bounces back. If you read the notebook on Monday morning, the Seals were kind of sat freshman Danny Shock down for in the second half after, I think it was 9 sacks up until that point. So, that Berwick defense is good.
Right.
By the way, you want a fun game this week? Berwick and Valley View play, which is 1 and 2 in Class 4A after a bunch of upsets last week. I think the Selinsgrove defense is pretty good. The way they played last week held Owen Shoemaker under 100 yards rushing for the Bulldogs, who have run the ball really well this season. And I think the Seals. I think this is a much more winnable game this week. Rolling up to probably puts them as a favorite rather than being a little underdog with Al Watkins up there on the road. And the Seals' schedule, even at 2-3, those losses are to Southern, Berwick, and Lewisburg. It gets a little easier here at the end of the season. Still have a big game with Shamokin upcoming, but this is a much, it's some good teams, but not quite the hammers that were at the beginning of the season.
Sure.
I think Selinsgrove, gets back to 500 this week, and it's kind of interesting with these, 2-18 playoffs in AA and AAA. If Loyalsock gets this figured out, it's a broken collarbone in his non-throwing. I think it's his non-throwing shoulder. So, there's a possibility that Watkins can get back for the playoffs, I would think. So, as long as they were able to right the ship and win a couple more games, I think the Lancers should be okay. But I think the Seals get this one.
Speaking of Selinsgrove's defense, make sure to check out Friday's game night section for our cover story this week is about Selinsgrove's defense. So, cheap plug.
You do that well.
Yeah. Right across the bridge, Schick scored again last week.
Twice?
Twice. Still looking for that first win, but Central Mountain making a long trip down here. I think this is the week for the Braves.
I do too. I think the Braves get this one. We're able kind of to do some things offensively last week that they hadn't been able to do at all this year. Trying to get back to the wing tee and some good things. Really haven't had much in the passing game. We got a long pass in the first quarter from Duncan Weir to Evan Bingaman, who for some reason I had in a stack says Dukin, which I kind of like that name, but he probably wouldn't. So, I think the Braves are going to be a little better offensively, and this defense has played well. Central Mountain has one big weapon, that's Colin Jones, who has 4 of their 7 touchdowns this season. They can throw the ball a little bit, can score some points if necessary, put some points on Williamsport. They've been playing out of the area lately in District 6. Lost to Huntington and Bellefonte, I think, the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
It was Huntington's first win, I think. Or no, Clearfield and Bellefonte. I'm sorry. Clearfield and Bellefonte. I think Central Mountain and Schick are probably in the same boat. Both thinking this is the right time to get a win. Like I said, I think the Braves get it. And I really thought the Braves, even if they went winless, had a real good shot at a district playoff. But kind of looking at those power rankings coming out this week, they're like a 100th of a point ahead of Columbia Montorvo Tech right now. So a win against a bigger school, I think would really help them there. And I think if they get this win, it'll probably be pretty hard for Votech to pass them. I think Votech has a game with Warrior Run at the end of the year that might help them. But I think that's a function of playing in a league with a lot of smaller schools, and I think Schick, if they can get this win, probably does wrap up a playoff berth, which is odd to say for an 0-5 team, man. The Braves get their first win, but just make sure to keep Colin Jones from hurting them.
Sure. And then Hack 1 leader. I'm not sure this was projected, but
don't tell anybody in Shamokin it wasn't projected.
Yeah, they expected. Henry Hynoski's first year, Shamokin 3-2, big win over Lewisburg last week. Headed up to Jersey Shore for another winnable game in Thompson Street Stadium that could put them 4-2.
I think this might be a real big test for Shamokin because this is a team that has happened. If you look over its history, it's if this is a different Shamokin team, like they're saying. They win this game and they go up there and play well. But, Shamokin's history, they did it last year where you thought that, they should have beaten Central Mountain up at Central Mountain, and Central Mountain really did a number on them in the second half. And, like I said, if the cultures change, Shamokin goes up there and wins this one pretty easily. Bryson James probably has a big game. But, the Bulldogs, surprising looking at their stats against Schick, they're still really struggling to run the ball. I don't think. Kyle Toom had 1,600 yards last year and still hasn't topped 100 yards in a game yet this season. They've really made their living with their defense. And the Indians were really opportunistic last week. The two pick sixes that Nick Shedleski threw last week were his first 2 interceptions of the season. They did a real good job of jumping on the Green Dragons early, and their defense played really well. Max Moyers had 100 and some yards, but other than the touchdown pass that Ethan Spalding threw, the Green Dragons really couldn't get their offense going last week with just 7 points in the first half. So, I really expect Shamokin to take this one, but the Bulldogs could surprise them.
Yeah, Shamokin was ahead 14-0 before they had an offensive play last week, which was crazy.
Yeah, well, it's a good way to jump on somebody.
All right, we gone through half our games. We got 6 more coming up after a short word from our sponsor, Sun Orthopedics at Evangelical.
Whether it's time to live it up on the field or in the backyard, there's always time to play. The sports medicine team at Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical understands how important movement is to you and your family's life. With 4 convenient locations, the experts at Sun Orthopedics explore every treatment option available, from simple braces to advanced surgical techniques. They support you through the entire healing process, making sure you're back to being a warrior every weekend. Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical. Hit refresh and get moving again.
Welcome back. We're going to start the second half with our game of the week, Central Columbia at Danville, in what figures I think could be a real great game on Friday night.
Yeah, I think there's a real good shot. Doesn't mean anything for either division. It's a crossover game, but big game in class. Top to contender 3A, top to contender 2A. The Blue Jays gave Danville was undefeated going up there last year, and Central really hurt them with 2 deep passes. And I think that's kind of when we figured out that Trey Devlin's a pretty good quarterback. Mm-hmm. Last week, hung with Southern for a half.
Southern without Stone Hollenbach, which I don't know how much it mattered, but
Zachman was 8 of 10.
Yes. Maybe mentally, I don't know. Yeah. But it was 20-20 at halftime, and then Southern scored 27 in the third quarter to pull away.
We were at the bridal shower, or not the bridal shower, the
rehearsal dinner.
Rehearsal dinner, and when I was telling people it was 20-20 at halftime, we were kind of doing over under what it would be. Third quarter, and needless to say, the lowest guess was 47-20. So. But it was just it is really amusing that hanging with Southern for a half. It really does count for something. That's a real good football team, and I think Central and Mount Carmel played a whale of a game to start the season out of the Silver Bowl. Mm-hmm. Central defense is real good with Jack Schechterly and Kai Schultz. It's some of those guys that have this is their third year starting. Started doing my picks for the paper already, and I think I have it Danville 21-20. I think the Ironmen get this one, but it would be surprised me if this wasn't the best game of the week. Obviously, that's why it's the game of the week.
Exactly. I'd be surprised if there's only 41 combined points.
Well, I think both defenses are pretty darn good. I think that's one of the things I'm thinking. Danville's offense is pretty explosive, but I think that Central defense has some players there that can at least slow them down a little bit.
Okay. Then those Tigers keeping that winning streak going. Headed to South Williamsport.
You couldn't think what South Williamsport was.
They're the Mounties. I know what they are. I was just trying to think. I was trying to think of who they had that was good, and I could only think of Gideon Green, and I think he graduated.
Yeah, he did graduate. I can't think. It's going to drive me nuts. The running back's name is Goriski now, and it's him and Max Moyers are kind of bouncing back and forth in the District 4 rushing lead.
Okay.
This is where South Williamsport's veteran at is more at quarterback. AJ Flick is back. He's been a 3-year starter. Throwing the ball a little bit more than maybe you expect out of a Mounties team. But yeah, you would expect going up to a rival like Central. You're playing without your starting quarterback 2020. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty big test, and they passed that one pretty quickly.
Certainly.
Questions about Southern's ability to run the ball have kind of been answered since that Mount Carmel game. Gage Garcia and Gavin Garcia are both now in our top 10 running the ball, and it might be a little bit of difference between. There's a lot, maybe not the accuracy that Stone has. But Preston has a pretty good arm. Mm-hmm. If you saw the highlights last week, the touchdown pass that he threw to Julian. Still don't know how Julian got his foot down if you saw that one, but that seems to be the theme when they play Central. Wasn't that the one where he made the diving catch and toe tapped the one last year? So, yeah, these two teams have met in the district play. No, they didn't meet in the district playoffs last year. Mount Carmel got South Williamsport last year before 2 years ago in the district final. I think Southern Columbia wins this one. Was also pretty surprised about. Oh yeah, I know. I was pretty surprised about how South Williamsport handled Bloomsburg last week too, because
sure.
Yeah, Bloomsburg had been playing really well, and South Williamsport I think beat them 32-7. So, don't undersell the South Williamsport team. Their only loss is to an undefeated Muncie team. It's probably going to be them or Muncie in Class A this season, but I think the Tigers obviously have a little much for the Mounties.
The last game we have in the Heartland this week is two teams I feel like I don't have a good read on either of them. Lewisburg headed to Bloomsburg. I just don't even know what to expect. If you're telling me it's close or a blowout either way, I could believe it.
These two teams have actually played some real good games over the years. Don't forget this one's up at the university. They still can't get the flooding this summer really put a hurting on Bloomsburg's high school football field. I think the Green Dragons get to this one because I think they bounce back. It's got a little mentally tough to get down 14-0, especially the way that Lewisburg kind of wants to play with that running game and pass, off of its running game. It's going to be tough for Bloomsburg, obviously, to stop Max Moyers. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see. They've really worked Romali Brown in at receiver over the past couple weeks, and Dylan Farinato's gotten hurt. I think anybody who's kind of watched Lewisburg knows that Nick's kind of banged up at this point. It'd be nice to see, how healthy he's going to be for the rest of this season. And I think right now Lewisburg's just rooting for Selinsgrove to beat Shamokin in a couple weeks at this point. Lewisburg has Schick next week. I think they've already and still has Jersey Shore yet in the league. So they're really rooting for Selinsgrove to get Shamokin, maybe get a three-way split of this Division I title, and maybe turning their attentions to the 3A playoffs at this point. And it's just a matter of kind of getting back on track. They didn't really play that poorly last week. I think obviously they would have liked to have been a little more efficient on offense.
Sure.
7 points, obviously, but that game is still. It's still tied without those two picks going into the second half at 7-7 or
right.
Whatever. So I think if you're Lewisburg, you're kind of looking at that part of it, and I think they bounce back this week. But obviously can't overlook this Panthers team that was playing well until that South Williamsport game last week.
Leaving the HAC, we got Midwest at home. I feel like it's only their second home game.
It is only their second home game.
In week 6? That doesn't seem...
Well, they skipped a week.
Oh, true, bye week.
Weird schedule. Most of their stuff here at the end of the season's home.
Okay.
I think they only have one more trip the last week of the year. And, for their awful road trips this year, it's Tunkhannock.
Ooh.
But I think maybe there's another, I think Nativity, Vincentian Academy, and Athens are all at home over the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
So,
they're hosting Penns Valley.
No.
No, I don't know Penns Valley.
Actually, it's not that far of a trip.
Okay.
It's on the way to State College on Route 45 out on the other side of Milheim. Still does nothing for you.
I know how to get to State College from here.
All right, hang a left on 45. You pass the school on the right. How's that?
Great.
It's going to be an interesting matchup for the Mustangs. Penns Valley features a really strong passing offense. Aaron Tobias has already thrown for 1,300 yards at 15 touchdowns this season.
Wow.
Penns Valley is 3-2. He has games of 431 yards at 339 yards. So this could be. It's like the type of offense the Mustangs are used to facing. Jim Thorpe really wanted to run the ball. Midwest wanted to run. Midwest. They are Midwest. Blue Mountain really wanted to run the ball. Both kind of wing T-ish teams. Shenandoah Valley wanted to run the ball out of the wing T. Marion had no interest in throwing the ball until they had to either in the first game. So it's going to be an interesting thing for this defense. And obviously the game plan against an offense like that kind of works into what Midwest wants to do, and that's run the ball and control the clock. Jim Thorpe was so good last week. Defensively really did not allow the Mustangs to get anything going.
Midwest did score against them first time in five
five
weeks.
games.
Yeah, so that's a little win in my book.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is they're kind of getting used to. I think they expected to rely a little bit more on Trey Lawver, who has missed the last couple weeks and should be getting close to returning for that stretch run. But I think the interesting part right now is Midwest. If they're looking to win, one or two, even maybe one or two or more of these games has a shot to have a home playoff game out at West Snyder the first week of the playoffs.
As the 2 seed.
As a 2 seed,
Wow.
which I think would surprise a lot of people, and I think that would be great for that program in its first year. I kind of think Midwest wins this game. I think, but Penns Valley is a pretty good team. Be interested. They've scored 185 points already this season. Played beat two bigger schools the last 2 weeks in Huntington and Central out of Martinsburg, who, were both really good the last 2 years, but I think both are rebuilding right now. I think both only have one win. And Huntington, I don't know how close you guys are paying attention to the flooding 2 weeks ago. Their football field was underwater 2 weeks ago, so I imagine that's probably a tough practice schedule to figure out for them. But I think Midwest, uses its running game and controls the clock and picks up a win against Penns Valley.
Okay. Heading over to the Tri-Valley League, a big game out there. Line Mountain headed to Williams Valley. These are two of the favorites in the league coming into the year, and two of the teams who are right there behind Halifax.
Yeah, 3-1, and if you ever, I know it's a little bit of a haul, but if you ever get a chance to go out to Williams Valley to watch a game, it is a great place to watch a game.
Between the Pines.
I was just gonna say Between the Pines. It's not anywhere near the high school. And it is. It's you walk up to the gate and there's pine trees surrounding the field. It's always crowded. They love their Vikings down there. I have no idea about Line Mountain at this point of the season. I mean, they have struggled at times on offense with turnovers. They played. Still didn't seem quite. I don't think Coach Brandon Carson felt quite pleased where they're at offensively even last week after that blowout win over Millersburg. Obviously, Williams Valley's kind of been up and down. They looked really impressive the first couple weeks of the season, and then Susquehanna really controlled the line of scrimmage against them 2 weeks ago and kind of in an upset. Bounced back last week with a victory, but I think it's tough to go against Williams Valley at home. I just wonder. I don't know what you're going to get out of the Line Mountain offense against that defense. The Line Mountain defense has played real well the last 3 weeks. It's going to be a matter if they can control Levi Engel, the quarterback, who Williams Valley wants to run the ball, and then kind of hit you with some deep passes out of that wing tee. I think Williams Valley wins this one, but I think Line Mountain has a chance with that defense to make it interesting, and a win here for Line Mountain really puts them. It gives them a chance to be that team that steps up if Halifax somehow would falter at the end of these last 4 weeks of the season.
Williams Valley had that upset, but everyone expected them to be one of the best teams in the league again. But this is after graduating the Class A Player of the Year or Co-Player of the Year last year,
and his twin who was a 2-time Defensive Player All-State. Yeah, and
in the Raybucks. So.
Yeah, but the way they pounded people at the beginning of the season, it looked like it was to be the same old thing. I think this is the first time they had lost a Tri-Valley League game in almost 2.5 years.
Wow.
And, and it was at Williams Valley, which is a tough place to play. But yeah, it's hard to pick against the Vikings at home, but I really think, this is the best shot the Eagles have had in a couple years to beat them out at Williams Valley.
Then our last game, we've got Millersburg, who started off the year really showing some signs. The last couple weeks haven't gone as well. Maybe it's the short week before Line Mountain, or having a prolific passing attack in the pouring rain a week and a half ago when they played on that Monday. They host Newport, and I'd like to see them put another good game at least. Maybe this isn't the week they win, but at least make some progress so they can get one this year and snap that losing streak.
Well, it's weird to say that Newport's winless coming into this one, because Newport's contended for the TVL title the last 3 years, and you're like, Millersburg has a shot, but Newport's running back has also topped 200 yards twice already in the first 5 games of the season, and if take anything away from this podcast, I think we know Millersburg can't stop the run. They're on pace to allow almost 3,000 yards on the ground right now, and Line Mountain pushed them around. Newport's going to come into town and really want to run the ball. Looks like they've kind of made a decision to go with Aiden Harmon. After that rain game at Halifax, he played the whole way against Line Mountain last week. Caden Feaster caught a touchdown pass, the guy that started the season at quarterback. Big thing for the Indians is if Logan Marshall comes back to play. He was leading the area in receptions. That'd been a good trivia question because I bet most people would say Julian Fleming, but he was leading the area in receiving yards till he missed last week against Lime Mountain. So if they get them back, that gives them a little more potency in their offense. I think Newport wins, but I won't be surprised as this is more like the first game or the Upper Dauphin game where Millersburg's kind of able to score some points, but that running game is just entirely too much for Millersburg.
So over under 120 for that game if you're...
Holy heck. Where do you get your numbers?
I just made it up.
No, all right.
74-56 was that Upper Dauphin game. It was fun to watch on the computer. So
you sound like an old man. On the YouTube.
Friday nights in the office can sometimes be a little slow, so
until about 10:30, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I had fun watching Millersburg and Upper Dauphin put up all those points a few weeks ago. So those are all our games. Make sure to check out Friday's paper for our game night section. And in the regular sports, Todd will have his picks and his column. Friday night, we have the live scoreboard on dailyitem.com as well as our live blog with updates from all the games. Saturday morning, make sure to check out all the game recaps. And then Monday, we have the high school football notebook with interesting tidbits from Friday night's games. Right?
Yep.
All right. Thanks for watching.
You've been nailing that all season, man.
After messing it up pretty much 12 weeks in a row last year, I practiced over the summer. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Whether it's time to live it up on the field or in the backyard, there's always time to play. The sports medicine team at Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical understands how important movement is to you and your family's life. With 4 convenient locations, the experts at Sun Orthopedics explore every treatment option available, from simple braces to advanced surgical techniques. They support you through the entire healing process, making sure you're back to being a warrior every weekend. Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical. Hit refresh and get moving again.